Hello, I'm Bruce Zimmerman, and this is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week. Now, this sort of segment has been encouraged by a question I got this week on cedars. When people over time don't listen and, of course, always try and save a buck or two, sometimes you end up paying for it in the long run, particularly not initially, but let's say, yes, in the long run. So later on, they see the results of their mistake. So we're going to talk about cedars. And cedars can be used either as a specimen or as a hedge. But people like to use them as hedge. And they usually go to the garden center and they buy the swamp cedars, which is the white, Canadian white cedar. Okay? It's all the same thing. It's all genetically the same. A lot of them are wilded right out of the swamps up north. And they take and they bring them down here into a warmer climate. Well, they've sort of adjusted, and those particular plants are used to a much colder winter. You bring them down here and they do much better. Sounds good. If you push them, what happens is they do even better. And you push them with water and you push them with fertilizer, and of course they grow and they do really well. But as time goes on, you will see that the bottoms get thin, and of course cedars don't regenerate from old wood, so you always have a thin hedge at the bottom. So buying that type of cedar, which is the Canadian white cedar, swamp cedars, etc., are not always a good fix for a problem if you're going to be building a screen or a hedge, etc. So, you may want to spend the money initially and understand that you'll be getting a better plant. So, here's some of the different cedars, both for hedging and for specimens, in all different shapes and colors, that you can select for your garden. We're going to start with the occidentalis varieties, and the first one we're going to do is called American Pillar. Surprise, this is a hedging one, right? It is a super fast growing, tall, narrow habit. It maintains a desirable shape in the garden, and even with a minimal amount of pruning. That's what you're looking for, right? Low maintenance. Hey, a hedge. You can make a nice long hedge and not have to do a tremendous amount of pruning to give you an effective hedge. So it is good in the residential or commercial settings. And I think what you'll find is that if you can keep this one trimmed to a single leader, which I think you should do with all the hedging cedars, you will find that they won't pull apart in the wintertime under the weight of snow and ice, and they will, of course, always be that much neater as they grow. Now remember, don't push them hard. Let them find their own way. Yes, you want to give them standard maintenance of food and water. And let's be honest, a water-soluble high nitrogen fertilizer in the spring is often what cedars do like. And it's usually in about the first part of May, so at least in this part of the world. So try that, but don't overdo it. You shouldn't feed them more than once or twice a year. For those of you who just gotta keep feeding them, you will pay for it later. Okay? So don't do it. So there's American Pillars. Now, it's got some deer resistance, which cedars don't really have. So you should be aware of that. And, of course, it is very hardy to zone 3. So we're not worried about hardiness here, but we are also looking at it has a good winter color. In other words, it maintains its color in the winter time. It is going to be, though, 15 to 20 feet tall when it's mature. Okay? American pillar. Now let's go and do a ball one. Here's Anna's Magic Ball. And this one is a dwarf evergreen. It's only going to be 10 to 15 inches in diameter. Hardy to zone 3. What you're going to look at here is you're going to pay a little bit more money because, of course, to get it to any size, it's going to take longer. It's a dwarf. And it's really tough. I mean, zone 3, right? It's evergreen. It's got a good burn resistance to winter and holds its color well into the winter. So you've got a plant that gives you sort of a golden look in a ball and, of course, is very hardy and neat and small and compact. That means low maintenance. And then there's Philippe's Magic Moment. Now, Magic Moment here is actually quite an interesting plant in the fact that it has the same habit as the dwarf Alberta spruce. So it makes an excellent substitute in the landscape for the dwarf Alberta spruce. Again, hardy to zone 3. It's going to get 6 to 8 feet tall. And what you're going to find is, you're going to have a golden color. You're going to have that familiar shape. And then, of course, it was bred in Canada. So it's tough and it's Canadian. So that's always a good one. And I think you'll find that this one is one of the ones that you can put into both the ground and into a large container over winter. So you may want to try that as well. Then there's Fire Chief. Now, Fire Chief is an interesting one. It's a durable orange globe cedar. And it's an evergreen that has that sort of golden shape and color like Rheingold, okay, cedars. But it's much brighter in the spring color. And it's deeper, more red on the tips, hence the name Fire Chief. And it's less prone to splitting apart under winter conditions, etc. Hardy to zone 3, 3 to 4 feet, and of course, evergreen. So it might be a good, excellent substitute for a lot of the ball or slightly more peaked dwarf cedars. Always an excellent one as well in the landscape. We've got Golden Globe. Now, Golden Globe, of course, is going to give you exactly that. And it is a soft golden yellow foliage, hardy to zone 3, 2 to 3 feet. This one is just okay. But there are others that I would go and put into the landscape if you're looking for the color. Okay. Het's Midget Cedar is a dense, compact globe. It has fans of green foliage, which is, you can see the fans of them in the cedar. So that's neat. The growth rate is slow. Habit becomes more squat with age, so a little less round. It's still a popular dwarf globe, and it is hardy to zone 3. It's only going to be 1 to 2 feet tall. Mr. Bowling Ball, I like this name. A dwarf mounded globe with soft, silvery blue juvenile foliage. The habit is tight, compact, excellent in both the ground in a landscape as well as in large containers. And I think what you'll find is that it's not quite as hardy as the others. It's only hardy to zone 4, which is still something. but it's going to be 12 to 15 inches in diameter. That's dwarf. Then there's Niagara Dark Green. Now, this one is a pyramidal form with deep green foliage, good winter color. That means it maintains that green color. Doesn't get that rusty orange. Hardy to zone 3, 10 to 15 feet in diameter is what it's going to do. It's a nice little pyramid. But, again, not as skinny as the American pillar. North Pole is the next one. This is fast-growing, narrow, columnar, and it is excellent in its winter hardiness, zone 3. The dark green winter color is maintained, so that's good. It is quite narrow, and it is also resistant to the winter burn, so that's good as well. And let's put it this way, it was developed in Minnesota, so it knows winter. 10 to 15 feet, hardy to zone 3. Pancake. Well, this one should be interesting. No pruning is necessary to maintain a distinctive flattened shape of this cedar. Its juvenile foliage turns a lovely blue hue in the fall and winter. Very different. Hardy to zone 3, it's only a foot tall and gets 2 to 3 feet wide. Now that's an interesting cedar. Okay, you're going to look at this one and go, that's a cedar? Yeah, it's a cedar. Polar gold. Now, polar gold is golden foliaged, and it's golden year-round, which is good, because some of them get more green in the winter, and then, of course, the new growth and the warmth through the growing season, they get gold. And the new growth is only gold, so this one is going to be attractive that way. It's great in the landscape. Its size and habit is excellent. It's dense. It's finely textured foliage. Now that means it's resistant to windburn. It's hardy to zone 3. It gets 12 to 15 feet high and 4 to 6 feet wide. Skywalker. Now, Skywalker is an interesting cedar. It is very narrow in its habit. It's very resistant to windburn. It will be good anywhere in the landscape, either as a hedge or not. It's very conical in its shape, so it's nice in the fact that it's going to be the shape you want for a hedge without a lot of work. Hardy to zone 3, 12 to 15 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. So you're going to have to give it some room. That's fine. Smaragd is a cedar that has been around forever. It has a great reputation. It is one that people have sought and looked for and grown for many, 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 many years. It's extremely popular because it's a tight pyramidal form, shiny, bright, emerald green foliage. It's distinctive because of that. And it holds its winter color very well. So that's all reason to put this into your garden. Came out of Denmark, so it is used to the cold. Hardy to zone 4, 10 to 15 feet tall. Thin Man. Now, Thin Man is interesting in the fact that it's a fast-growing, so it's great for screens, has a very narrow habit. It holds its winter color well. It's hardy to zone 3, 12 to 15 feet tall, but really quite narrow. This one and the American Pillar are going to be your most narrow. Okay? Then we get into the western cedars. Now, western cedars is a little different. They are Thuia plicata. They have a different type of foliage. They are distinct in it, and it's really neat when you see them. This particular one, called Green Giant, has a lustrous, rich, medium green foliage. It's a broad pyramidal. It is native to Denmark, or where it was at least found. So it's a naturally occurring. Hardy to zone 5, 30 to 40 feet or taller. Now that's big. Spring Grove is another one, and I think you'll like this one. It is hardy to minus 25 degrees Fahrenheit easily. It's going to be hardy to about zone 5, 25 to 30 feet tall, and very distinctive in the fact that it has that look of the foliage that Green Giant has, but at the same time it has an excellent resistance to deer. And but it is definitely a big boy. So there's a few cedars that you can choose from to select for your garden. I'm Bruce Zimmerman. This is the Open Line Garden Show podcast for this week.